Now, the first Western leader to visit Syria since the ouster of former President Bashar al-Assad in 2024. After, of course, the conflict that has killed 500,000 people, displaced many more. Today, the French President Emmanuel Macron is set to visit the country. The visit after Macron hosted the Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa, the former Islamist leader who seized power in Damascus, here in Paris, just over a year ago, as you can see in these images here. At the time, promising he would push the European Union and the United States to lift crippling sanctions on Syria. Most of them have since been removed. Well, let's talk more about the visit. I'm joined here on set by Matthew-Mary Caruchet from our International Affairs Desk. I mean, a historic visit, it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? Everyone says it, but it's true in this case, isn't it?
I mean, yes, as you said, Macron is the first leader of a Western country to visit Syria since Ahmed al-Sharaa took power about a year and a half ago. Al-Sharaa, as you said, rose to power as the leader of the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham militant group, which used to have ties to al-Qaeda. But since taking power, he's really eager to reform his image. And Macron has really been at the forefront of re-establishing connections between Syria and the West. Not only is this the first Western leader to visit Syria, but also when Sharaa came to Europe, France was the first stop for Sharaa. And just a month ago, Macron invited Sharaa to go to the G7 summit, although Sharaa didn't really end up attending. The details of this visit, however, are really under wraps. We don't really know what's going to happen. A lot of that is probably due to the attack on a cafe in Damascus a few days ago. 10 people were killed. It was a cafe frequented by lawyers who go to the tribunal, too little French there. The tribunal next door where leaders from Bashar al-Assad's government are on trial. So a lot of things have been canceled. Macron was supposed to tour Damascene neighborhoods, and he's not going to do that anymore. And also, the first session of the transitional parliament was supposed to take place today, but that's not going to happen.
So, bearing in mind all those things that aren't going to happen, what is going to happen? What are they set to discuss?
Well, one of the things that are most likely going to be on the docket are serious efforts at reconciliation and about reunification. Macron has really put himself forward as a protector of Syrian minority groups. And since al-Sharaa took power a year and a half ago, there have been numerous sectarian attacks on Christians, Alawites, Druze. And each time, Macron has really pushed Sharaa to protect these minority groups. A big sticking point between the two leaders have been Kurdish groups. France and the U.S. have historically supported Kurdish forces in the north and northeast, especially as they're fighting against ISIS and other terrorist groups. But Sharaa has really been pushing for unification and took over these areas in January. And so now the Kurdish forces have agreed to integrate, even though they really want autonomy. And so France is kind of hedging its bets right there. And the last thing, of course, is the Islamic State, which we just mentioned. There are still a lot of French citizen fighters and their families who are in Syria, and Sharaa and other people have really wanted France to repatriate them, but France is really hesitant to do that because it fears that they will be a security risk if they come back.
Finally, Matthew-Mary, we're starting to get, aren't we, some details coming through about Macron's entourage, and judging from the list, I mean, there's going to be an economic focus to this as well, isn't there?
I mean, yes, the list hasn't been finalized or completely published, but Macron often travels with a slew of high-level business leaders. And this time, it reportedly includes the head of energy, logistics, and transportation companies. Syria is a major investment for foreign companies. Basically, everything has to be rebuilt. All of its ports, all of its infrastructure, all of its airports. And the World Bank estimates that this is going to cost more than 200 billion euros. And France is looking to line up. Notably, Syria wants to transform itself into an energy hub. It's never been the biggest oil producer, but it used to produce at least enough for itself and for a little bit for export. But now it only produces about a quarter of what it used to. To that end, French energy conglomerate Total Energy has signed a memorandum of understanding with other companies for the exploration of Syrian offshore resources. It used to have licenses to operate in the Kurdish regions, but it's not certain whether that's going to happen again. But even going beyond domestic production, because of the tension in the Strait of Hormuz, both Iraq and Saudi Arabia are looking to rebuild and reopen alternative routes. That includes that includes pipelines that will go through Syria, and that is another thing that's going to require lots of logistics. And to that end, French shipping conglomerate CMA-CGM has inked a 30-year deal to manage the major Mediterranean port of Latakia, as well as deals for dry ports near Damascus and Aleppo. And finally, in regards to aviation, French Aerospace and Defense Corporation TAL has been in talks for several months to reestablish air traffic in the country. Damascus increasingly views economic openness as an essential component of state consolidation and a way of bridging instruments to rehabilitate its diplomacy with other countries. It sees that if other countries are invested in the country, that it will increase its stability and give them a stake in Syria's future.